Our film begins in the heart of the ocean, where we see a happy family embarking on a sea voyage together. We meet our heroine, Julia, a doctor, and her husband, marine scientist Tom. They have 2 children, the son Ben and the daughter Casey. Their life is calm and joyful and everything seems perfect. Julia decides to take a swim in the sea, while Tom teaches Ben how to fish. The atmosphere is filled with fun and tranquility. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. As Julia swims, she senses that something is off in the water. Fear begins to creep in. She looks around but sees nothing unusual. Even when she dives beneath the surface, there is no sign of danger. She calms herself and continues swimming. She realizes the danger is real. She struggles against the water, trying to return to her family, but the power of the sea is terrifying, dragging her away rapidly. Julia screams at the top of her lungs, calling out for Tom for help. Tom hears her voice from afar, but cannot locate her immediately. Panic-stricken, he searches frantically. Moments later, he spots her, nearly drowning. He calls out to Casey to assist him, then steers the boat toward Julia's location. Casey attempts to jump in to save her mother, but Tom stops her, insisting she stay with her brother. Then, without hesitation, he dives into the water himself. And indeed, he reaches her just in time. Julia is on the brink of drowning completely. It was strange though, that when Tom entered the water, he didn't sense anything unusual. Everything seemed perfectly calm, and he managed to rescue Julia with ease. After bringing her back onto the boat, he asked her anxiously what had happened. She replied, still in shock, "I don't understand. I was swimming normally, enjoying the water, and suddenly, without any warning, I felt the current pulling me backward with tremendous force. I tried to resist, but it was extremely difficult, and I thought I was going to die." Tom is astonished by her words, then warns her and their children not to enter the sea without informing anyone, so that help could arrive immediately if someone were in danger. Then, Casey says fearfully, "After what happened to Mom, there's no way I'm going into the water again, Dad. Something dangerous must be out there." Despite the terror that had overtaken them, they tried not to let fear ruin their trip. Afterwards, they all gather to celebrate Ben's birthday, revealing that this trip had been planned especially for this occasion. Everyone presents gifts, and they take a family photo together. During the celebration, Casey receives a call from her friend Ada. She steps away from her family to tell him what happened with Julia, feeling frustrated and bored by the trip. Adam tries to comfort her. "Try to enjoy time with your family, and when you come back, I'll make sure you attend an amazing party that will make you forget all this boredom." But during their conversation, the weather suddenly turns, with lightning and thunder striking near Adam's location, and the network cuts off abruptly. Worried, Casey rushes back to her family to report what happened. Tom says he will follow up later, but at that moment, he hears a strange sound outside. He steps out with Ben to investigate its source. And here comes the shock. They discover whales swimming near their boat. Tom senses something is off. The appearance of the whales in this way could be a sign of serious disturbances beneath the earth. Whales often sense natural disasters before they occur. Tom decides to dive in to investigate what's happening. Despite Julia and their children's worry, he insists on going. Only a few minutes pass before he returns to the boat, but he is injured and bleeding. Julia is horrified by his appearance and rushes to him, anxiously asking, "What happened, my love?" He responds in pain, "I felt like something was behind me, and when I turned to see what it was, I collided with the boat's propeller and got cut." He sighs in distress and adds, "I don't want to frighten you, but the boat's fan is completely broken and we are now in a dangerous situation. I just hope we can make it back." Tom tries to contact anyone via the radio for help, but unfortunately, there is no signal and he cannot reach anyone at all. Losing his composure, he tells Julia with a trembling voice, "I didn't want to tell you this. We are in real danger. The food we have barely lasts 4 days, and after that, there will be nothing left. If no one comes to rescue us, we will die in the middle of this ocean." While speaking, he notices a bright light in the sky. Lifting his head to see, he freezes in shock. A giant, glowing, blazing object is falling from the sky directly toward the ocean. Moments later, it crashes violently into the water. Tom whispers in fear, "It seems dark days await us." He climbs to the highest point of the boat to see the full scene, but the second shock is even worse. Another glowing object falls toward the ocean. Tom realizes a massive disaster is about to strike, and the worst part is that one of these objects could fall on them at any moment. He shouts to his family, "We have to move fast." Indeed, a series of objects begins to fall near the boat, so close they feel as if they will hit them. But fortunately, they pass by without causing harm. Suddenly, the area fills with thick smoke, and Tom orders everyone to take cover inside the boat. At that moment, the storm begins. Powerful winds lash out, tossing the boat violently in the chaos, with every second worsening the situation. Their biggest challenge now is to keep the boat from breaking apart entirely. They thought this was the worst that could happen. But They had no idea that worse was coming. Julia collapses from sheer terror, while parts of the boat begin to break under the storm's force. Tom decides to send a distress signal and quickly helps his family put on life jackets. Suddenly, a violent quake strikes the boat. Everyone loses consciousness completely. They don't wake up until the next day after the storm has subsided. They notice water has entered the boat and move to see the damage, only to find the boat is almost completely destroyed, with not a single part left intact. But strangely, they had not drowned. They didn't understand how it had happened until they climbed to the deck of the boat, only to witness a shocking sight. Fish dying right before their eyes. And then they discover the greater disaster. The ocean has completely dried up, not a single drop of water around them. They turn left and right in disbelief, unable to comprehend what they are seeing. It felt like an impossible nightmare. Tom speaks to his family with a trembling voice. What I'm about to say may sound strange, though nothing is stranger than this situation. I think we are witnessing the end of the world. Most likely, most people have perished. The only solution now is to try to find other survivors. Then Tom notices something even more terrifying. The compass has completely reversed. North is now south, south is now north. All directions are confused. At that moment, Tom begins a chilling explanation. Perhaps the oceans didn't dry up as we thought, but rather the opposite. The oceans have taken the place of the land, and the land has become the oceans. This means that everyone on land has drowned, and only those who were at sea have survived. Casey is shocked by her father's words because this implies one thing. Adam, her beloved friend, may have died. Julia tries to calm her, but Casey completely breaks down, crying uncontrollably. Firmly, Julia tells her, "Wake up, Casey. Defer to none, and instead of crying for him, cry for yourself. We are in an unknown place, and we don't even have food." But Casey is devastated, and all she can think about is Adam. Julia realizes talking to her is futile and leaves her to cry alone. Meanwhile, Ben blows up the balloons he has, ties them to a rope, and releases them into the sky, hoping someone will see them and come to rescue them. Tom admires what his son did and says it's a clever idea. He then tries to send a distress signal using the remaining wires on the boat, and suddenly, a surprise occurs. Finally, someone responds. He discovers that the person is called Now. Tom, incredulous, speaks with him and asks what happened. Now replies, "I don't know how it happened, but it's a disaster. The land has sunk and the oceans are not in their place. But, in my estimation, things may return to normal soon." At this, Tom is even more terrified, because the return of the waters means only one thing: they will all drown, as their boat is completely destroyed. Tom knows that Now is a diver and pleads with him to save his family and take them to his submarine. Now responds, "I have no objection, but you must reach my location first." He then precisely describes the location of the submarine and ends the call. After the conversation, Tom tries to reassure Julia that they will be able to move and reach the submarine before the ocean returns to its place. But Julia sees that everything is collapsing, and that hope is almost gone. The next morning, Tom is startled as a strange and suspicious man approaches them slowly. Tom steps forward cautiously, then notices the man is holding a weapon. He freezes in fear, but also sees that the man is injured and bleeding. He tries to speak to him, saying that Julia, being a doctor, can treat him, but the man does not respond. He only stares at the water bottle Tom is holding. Tom hands him the bottle. The man grabs it and drinks it all at once, then lifts his head and looks at Tom with a fierce glare. Suddenly, he attacks violently. Julia rushes forward in terror, and at that moment, the man stabs Tom directly with his weapon. Julia freezes in shock. Ben, seeing the scene, is stunned, unable to take a single step. The man then moves toward Julia, intending to kill her as well. Julia screams and runs at full speed. The man throws his weapon at her. She is injured, but fights through the pain, continuing to run until she reaches the boat. Quickly, she hides Casey and Ben inside, trying to stay composed despite her wound, knowing she must protect her children at all costs. She hides in the bathroom, tends to her injury quickly, grabs a knife, and waits. Waiting for the moment the madman approaches so she can strike him immediately. Outside, the man starts eating frantically, as if he hasn't tasted food in years, then begins roaming, searching for her. When Julia feels he is approaching the bathroom, she is overwhelmed with terror. She exits the boat and hides far away so he won't see her. As she trembles while moving, a fierce dog suddenly attacks her. Julia is on the verge of collapse from fear and exhaustion, but she gathers her strength and kills the dog with the knife she carries. She runs again, trying to find a way to deal with the killer, but when the man sees the dog dead, he collapses completely. It had been his only friend. Meanwhile, Julia sneaks back into the boat, attempting to stab him from behind. but the man senses her presence. Ben and Casey watch everything through a small hole in the cabin. They want to go out to help their mother, but they freeze in place. She had told them not to leave no matter what. The man drags Julia to the ground forcefully and begins beating her. She tries to resist, but his strength is terrifying, as if he were a fighter shaped by years of violence. Then he wraps his hands around her neck and attempts to strangle her to death. At the moment, Julia is gasping her last breaths. Casey suddenly emerges from the cabin, holding a flare gun. She trembles with fear, but gathers her courage and fires. Flames erupt across his body, and the entire boat begins to catch fire. Julia and her children flee immediately. Julia tries to gather essential items, while the man, burning, tries to catch her. She pushes him away with force, then rushes to Tom, only to find her children sitting beside his body. Everyone collapses in tears, and Julia is overwhelmed with grief. But suddenly, she sees the man emerging from the boat again. Julia panics, grabs her children, and runs immediately. Ben refuses to leave his father's body, but he cannot hold back. Julia shouts at him, "If you don't move now, we will all die like your father." She pulls him along and runs. Finally, they manage to reach a distant spot to hide. Casey talks to her mother, crying, "I feel like the balloons are what revealed our location to that madman." Ben completely breaks down, feeling responsible for his father's death, but Julia hugs him and says, "It's not your fault. You were only trying to save us. What happened was fate, unavoidable." From that moment on, the three of them decide they will not give up and that they must fight to survive in this insane world. They start moving away from the area, and Ben notices a giant fish. He approaches it to see if it is edible, but at that moment, Julia spots a shadow approaching. Looking through the binoculars, she realizes the shadow belongs to that madman. She quickly pulls her children, and the three of them sprint, managing to escape him. After their escape, Julia discovers that Ben is extremely dehydrated and needs water immediately, or he will die. She takes out the bottle they have to give him a drink and is shocked. Casey had left it open, and there is only one drop left. Julia gives the last drop to her son, then explodes angrily at Casey. "Because of you, we could die of thirst." Casey collapses, crying, "We would die anyway, whether there was water or not. Didn't you see how that madman killed Dade?" Julia shouts, "Be quiet, we will find a way to survive, no matter what." They continue walking until they find a sunken plane in the dry ocean. They decide to take shelter inside. They eat some chocolate that Julia had brought from the boat. Then they sit, crying for Tom, unable to believe he is gone forever. Julia tries to comfort her children. To lift their spirits, she begins telling them about how she met Tom and how she fell in love with him, but she suddenly breaks down. She feels she cannot live without him and bursts into tears. After everyone falls asleep, Casey wakes up at night, feeling suffocated, and goes out to sit alone for a while. Suddenly, the madman appears behind her. He approaches slowly, ready to end her life. But Julia arrives at the last moment and attacks him from behind. She begins stabbing him repeatedly. Endless blows, until she ensures he is completely dead. She enters a hysterical state, continuing to stab even after his death. Casey approaches her crying, "Stop, Mom, stop!" Julia hugs her, and they return to the plane. In the morning, they discover that someone has eaten part of the madman's corpse. A horrifying sight. Julia realizes this means they are in even greater danger and must move carefully. But they are surprised to find that Ben has gone ahead. When they call him, he doesn't respond. They find him drinking from a filthy puddle. Julia and Casey scream and pull him away. "We know you're thirsty, but if you drink that, you'll die from disease." They continue walking, collecting scattered pieces of plastic to make a simple shelter for the night. Casey falls asleep from exhaustion, but Julia cannot sleep. She keeps watch. Suddenly, she sees giant scorpion-like creatures approaching in massive numbers. Her blood runs cold. They have no weapons to fight them. She runs quickly, waking her children. "We must leave immediately." The three of them sprint at full speed. While running, they see a group of humans in a nearby shelter. A woman tries to help them, but the man with her refuses. "There is no safety anymore. They could be dangerous to us." He forces the woman inside and closes the door on Julia and her children. Despite her pleas, Julia realizes they are completely alone. She orders her children to climb to the roof. She tries to follow them, but she is slower. At that very moment, the predatory creatures reach her and injure her legs. She is on the brink of death, but manages to climb at the last second. The people try to shoot the creatures, but there are too many, and bullets have no effect. The three sit on the roof, trembling in fear. Julia feels unbearable pain in her legs. She cuts her scarf and ties her wound herself, then collapses and loses consciousness. Casey tries to wake her, but the pain almost overpowers her. After a while, Julia wakes up, only to be shocked that Ben and Casey are not beside her. She calls them loudly. No answer. She descends from the roof in panic and discovers the horrifying truth. The predatory creatures killed those who refused to help them and devoured their flesh. Julia realizes these are the same creatures that ate the madman's corpse. She grabs the weapon they left behind and keeps calling for her children. Suddenly, Casey appears, hugging her and crying, "We didn't leave you, Mom. We just went to find someone to help us. We thought you wouldn't wake up." Julia hugs Ben as well, reassuring them, "I'm fine." They then decide to take over this place as their shelter. They collect the remaining weapons to defend themselves. Julia treats her wound with primitive and painful methods, but she endures it. Then they find water at last. They drink, unable to believe they survived the thirst. While inspecting the place, they find a radio device. Hope returns to Julia. She contacts Now, the diver Tom spoke to before. We notice that Now is also injured. He had battled the predatory creatures and humans who tried to steal his food and water. Julia steps away from her children and says in a broken voice, "My life doesn't matter, just save Casey and Ben." Now replies, "I'll try to save you all." Then, he fires a distress signal with his gun to mark his location. Seeing the signal close by, Julia feels hope for the first time. She and her children immediately move toward Now. As they continue walking, the sky begins to pour heavily, and they decide to move closer to the rocks for shelter and continue on their path. But suddenly, something completely unexpected happens. The rocks beside which they were walking collapse abruptly, and as the landslide occurs, Julia fears for Ben and Casey. She pushes them away from the rocks, and suddenly, a massive boulder falls, blocking the path behind them. Julia finds herself trapped in an isolated spot, and Casey breaks down in terror. Julia tells her, "I can't move anymore. Run, you and your brother, go to Now. He will help you, go now." Casey screams, distraught, "I can't leave you, Mom." Julia firmly grabs her hand. "You must go. Take Ben and leave now." Casey finally realizes that her mother has sacrificed her life for them. She grabs Ben tightly, and the two of them run at full speed until they reach the submarine, pounding on the door and calling for Now. Suddenly, Now appears, and Casey is shocked at the severity of the wounds on his body. She thinks to herself, "This is the one who will save us, but he also needs someone to save him." Now tells them, based on his experience with stations, that the water will return at any moment, and they only have a few minutes. He advises them to enter the submarine to secure their lives until the water returns. Casey finally feels hope, deciding that she must go back and rescue her mother so they can all board the submarine and survive together. Meanwhile, Julia fights the predatory creatures, trying to kill them with her rifle, but the bullets run out and the creatures approach her terrifyingly. Julia feels that she will not survive, succumbs to a moment of despair, and shouts through tears, ready for her painful fate. Suddenly, Casey appears on the rocks, extending her hand to her mother. "Come on, Mom, hurry!" Julia looks at her in astonishment, trying to climb to reach her before the creatures devour her. After a struggle, she manages to grab Casey's hand, and the two of them flee until they reach the submarine. Narvo sits on the ground, enduring pain, and suddenly the predatory creatures attack him, devouring one of them. But Julia and her children manage to climb onto the submarine surface. The creatures surround them in massive numbers. Julia tries to fight them, but the bullets have no effect. Exhausted, Julia decides to retreat, going inside the submarine and closing the door firmly, protecting herself and her children. They look out the submarine window and see the creatures trying to enter, and suddenly, they witness the ocean returning to its place. They strap themselves in quickly, feeling the intense water pressure. The submarine nearly collapses. Julia closes her eyes, feeling despair. But shortly after, she awakens with her children to find the submarine back at the surface. They look around in astonishment and amazement. Everything has returned to its place. The ocean is back. The land is back. Despite the destruction caused by the disaster, the most important thing is life has returned. Julia embraces her children, dreaming of a new life together. And although they all deeply miss Tom, the hope for survival gives them strength. Together, they begin a new journey in this world they have barely survived.